I'm going to show my personal front-end overview as for 2019. So there is a keyword personal here, but still, I want to have a disclaimer at the beginning. So as we probably all know, the perspective matters. And we can say that here in the slide there is even a third perspective in the comment. And the comment says, I don't get it. He is equally bold in both pictures. So let's have a look at my perspective. Who am I and why I can talk about frontend. My name is Mateusz and my surname is hard even for Polish people. That's why you can find me somewhere in the internet with my nickname Mat3E. Regarding GitHub, you can find all these slides from here already online, and there are some links to other sources here in the presentation, so it's worth checking. I work at Allegro, the biggest e-commerce here in Central Europe. I am also an IT trainer at Infoshare Academy, and I have some online courses on Udemy. So, we can say, pretty easy, that there are three main players in the front-end world. So we have Angular, React, and Vue, and the order I've mentioned them was an alphabetical order. But let's put them in some other orders. So let's start with a measurement like Github Stars. And the previous picture then should look rather like that. So Vue.js has 10,000 stars ahead of React, and somewhere down below is Angular, which still has less GitHub stars than its previous version, AngularJS. But when it comes to the second bigger player in the front-end world nowadays, so NPM, and when it comes to NPM downloads, the situation is radically different. So we have React, which is more than 6 million downloads a week. Then somewhere else is Angular with 2 million weekly downloads, and at the bottom, Vue, which not even have like 1 million of downloads a week. Okay, so we have these three players, but what should I choose starting a new project right now? Let's take a look at the progress. So this is my personal overview, so I can define progress on my own. So in my eyes, progress means the TypeScript support. And all these three frameworks are progressing, are moving forward to support. As you can see, even Vue is doing its best to support. It was announced in the third version that the third version of Vue will be rewritten in TypeScript. So the same story as with Angular 4 years ago. So Angular is totally rewritten in TypeScript. Vue is going to be rewritten in TypeScript. React is supporting TypeScript within its Create React App generator starter. So what should we choose starting a new project right now? It may be surprising, but I would start with as much vanilla JavaScript as it is possible, and especially with web components technology. And then, secondly, depending on the mood, whether I would like to have more template-like work or virtual DOM, I would go with React or Vue. And in fact, not even with React itself, but one of its, let's say, clones, micro frameworks. And my favorite one recently is HyperApp. It is 1 kilobyte, I mean 1.6, and it does what React and Redux combined. So single slide and two strange things. First, we have these micro frameworks, and secondly, we have these web components. So let me start with the micro frameworks, because every single day, you can check it at modulecounts.com, every single day we are getting like 500 new publications to NPM. And it is said here in the link to the NPM report that the average size of a JavaScript library or framework is really tiny. The frameworks are really, really small. And we should be careful about that because, for instance, in 2016, there was a tiny package called a leftpath, which broke like a half of internet because, for instance, Babel was using it, and back then it was possible to unpublish packages from NPM, and leftpath was just unpublished. So I don't know if you know, but there is a package, for instance, like isOdd, and it does what it is here. So instead of writing one line of code, I can download this package, and this is how like 800,000 people do every week, and just use it. But hey, this one dependency is having another dependency. What can it be? There is a package like isNumber, which is downloaded like 17 million times a week. And we should be careful, because every such a tiny package, every dependency which have other tiny dependencies, is a possible security issue. And as in 2016 we had some problems with this unpublication stuff, now NPM is doing its best to help with the security issues. Okay, but this hyper app I've mentioned is a micro framework which is pretty cool. It is pretty safe. So assuming that we have different teams with different micro frameworks, even these good ones, we need some kind of glue code to make these teams to cooperate with each other. So here are the web components. And web component is an umbrella name for 3 different technologies. Not 1, not 2, but 3. First is Custom Elements API. And all the modern browsers, but one, I think you know which one, have a global object like custom elements. And you can execute a define method on this object, passing a new tag you want to provide to your browser. And then you have to pass as a second parameter a class which extends an HTML element. And the only thing you need then is to call a super constructor in your constructor. So that's custom elements. The second technology here is Shadow DOM. So as we have a class which extends HTML element, I can execute many methods like inner HTML, append child, and stuff like that directly on this. But it is better to use a shadow. So to this, I can attach Shadow DOM. And then I can attach children to this shadow, not to this itself. Why? I will show you in a minute. And the third piece of puzzle is template. So we have a special tag in HTML called template, and what is inside this HTML tag is not rendered. So, but it is optimized to be cloned. So I'm cloning it and putting as a child of this Shadow DOM. Let me execute this code. Here I can click eval, and in fact I'm having here my tag full web component, but it is not known yet. But right after executing this code, ta-da, this is how it works. Let me check it in my browser. So I'm having shadow root, and take a look at this. I'm having style here, not a link to a style, but a style itself. I'm having tag selector. I'm having important. I have an ugly color, so all the worst thing I could have, but it still works okay. I'm having h2 in the shadow root. I'm having it also in my title, but my title is not broken because here I'm using Shadow DOM. Same with template. Template was the source for this code. It also has its style, and it is not breaking my presentation because template and shadow roots are like Las Vegas. What happens there stays there. All right, I've shared almost every modern browser supports the web components techniques. The only which is hesitating, let's say, is Microsoft Edge. But here on the official web components webpage, Microsoft Edge is marked as a browser which is going to develop a support to web components. In fact, Microsoft Edge is not as much into developing a support as it is into moving to Google Chrome. And in fact, Chromium, yeah, it is a tiny version, blah, blah, but still. Now, Word is divided into 2 parts. So we have guys who say, for instance, like here, that, hey, Firefox, you should surrender. Less than 5% of people uses you. You should contribute to Chrome, to Chromium. And there are other guys like me, I'm presenting here from Firefox, which are the opposite. So I think this is a time to everyone sitting here to answer on his own, on her own, whether it is good or bad that we are going to have a situation like one browser engine is dominating the landscape. But I'm not going to have as philosophical presentation, so let's change the formula a bit. So I'll provide you a number or a question, and you will try to figure out on your own what is this number related with. So let's start with something hard, why not? 95%. And this number comes from the article from the company called A Cloud Guru. And as the name, they have cloud in the name, yeah, so they've decided at some point in time to go fully serverless, to rewrite all their applications into serverless. And after that, they have published article. And this number was in this article. It is linked here, and it was said that 95% of the code, after moving serverless, became a front-end part. So business logic was moved to front-end. And only crucial pieces which need an access to data stayed in the serverless functions, functions as a service. But hey, these functions as a service, AWS Lambdas, Microsoft Azure Functions, and so on, all these things can be written in JavaScript as well. So, sounds good for JavaScript, but then we have another number, 46%. And it comes from the NPM report for 2018. There was also a technology radar report, which was pointing out one of the supersets of JavaScript, and this number is related with this superset. So 46% of JavaScript developers declare that they use TypeScript at daily basis. So almost half of developers, front-end developers, use TypeScript nowadays, as it was set in the NPM report. Also, as I've said, Technology Radar points out that this TypeScript is something we should start adopting right now. And there is one more thing which is strongly typed, it's schema, it's valid, static typing everywhere, and it is GraphQL. And I believe the GraphQL stuff is pretty known already. That's why I found something else, which is Hasura. And this is a technology which allows you to expose a GraphQL API directly from your PostgreSQL database. So I was talking about serverless, but it sounds like a backendless for me. And there is also a nice design approach proposed by this Hasura team, which is called Three-Factor App, and I recommend you to take a look at it on your own. This is, long story short, we need an event source, we need a GraphQL API, we need a serverless functions to validate this source of events. Sounds good, bright future in front of JavaScript developers, or TypeScript developers, but one more number. 97%, and it is also connected with NPM report for 2018. 97%, it was stated in the report, of modern front-end applications, of their code, comes from NPM. So this is what guys are doing. Instead of writing one line, they are downloading dependencies all over again. Okay, that's not as good, especially understanding that we have 3%, which are 95% of a serverless approach. But still, as for today, we should end up this presentation, with some quotation and stuff like that. I think Mahatma Gandhi was the one who said, first, they ignore you. Then, they laugh at you. Then, they fight with you, and then you win. When it comes to Red Hat, not really, but when it comes to JavaScript, it was ignored at some point in time. There are plenty jokes, some of them are still funny, but now I think we are somewhere here, or maybe TypeScript, Microsoft with its TypeScript technology is going somehow to overtake JavaScript, and we will see what is going on. So I think it's still a good time to become a JavaScript developer, and here are the links to the presentation once again. Here is my webpage when I'm putting some reports on and JavaScript as well. And that's all I've prepared for today. Thank you for your attention.